my name is Sam and welcome back to ThePandrus, and a welcome back indeed. It has been a long time since I've said that. The last time I did a proper episode of ThePandrus was about this time last year with Pop Idol. And I say proper because technically the last episode of ThePandrus was game purchases and that was just a winner bet, so that wasn't even proper. So yeah, there is a video coming out tomorrow as of when this is released to explain what's going on with my channel now that I am now off my small hiatus. I understand in my main video before that as well that I said that it was going to probably be for a few years, but exaggerated a little bit. So, as I've not had much time recently because of university work and settling into it and everything, to do a proper review, my comeback is a top 10. Yay! Now, everyone had those games from their childhood that they fondly remember, that they love to play and hold like a massive sense of nostalgia for it, even to this day. So here's 10 of mine. Now the usual top 10 rules apply here. 1. One game per franchise. 2. This is my opinion on my video about my childhood games. So I'm really sorry if it doesn't have your favourite childhood games on it, but this is my list. Now movie tie-in games are usually considered, well,
quite bad.
Occasionally you'll get the really good ones, the ones that surprise you and exceed your expectations. I had that with Shrek II. Now I came into this game as a child after playing Shrek Treasure Hunt, which was, well, I'll get to that one another day. Shrek 2 kinda follows the story of the film, and by that I mean it does follow the plot, but expands and derails itself from the different parts of the film throughout. I mean, come on, who remembers that part of the film where you had to guide mice through a dark spooky forest to stop a witch baking them or something? Or that famous and iconic scene where Shrek and co chase the troll around a museum to stop him from stealing the crown jewels. However, despite all that, he does do it very well. It's kind of like an extended universe that shows what happens between the different scenes that DreamWorks couldn't fit into the hour-and-a-half runtime in the film. You have 4 characters per level, each one having their own playstyle, use and abilities. For example, Shrek has brawler type fighting and can lift heavy objects, whereas Gingerbread Man can throw his candy cane for a ranged attack and can throw cookies to lure beasts. Albeit the game is a bit too easy, which I'll forgive for a game not aimed at someone my age, it's still very fun and enjoyable. Hey look! Another movie tie-in game! I promise this is the last one. I'm quite a fan of the Incredible series, well, anything Pixar really. Pixar took an oversaturated genre that's dominated by DC and Marvel and it's meant to be pretty violent.
Puny God.
And made a family-friendly superhero film. The Incredibles on PS2 is a fun game that, like Shrek 2, loosely follows the storyline of the film. I can't say anything else really. Seriously, I've not played it in years, I can't remember much. Stop judging me. Pokemon. Let's be honest, you all knew it was going to show up in here at some point, don't lie. Diamond and Pearl was the first one I played. Or Gen 4 if you're a nerd! Back in around 2009-ish, the DSi just came out and my parents bought one for me. I'd never played a Pokemon game before nor seen anything to do with the series, so I was going in completely blind, not knowing what to expect. What I saw was a game made by developers who knew what they were doing and that could nail the RPG, let alone a collectathon RPG. Sinnoh is beautiful and there is a lot to do. The story is fully fleshed out and there's not one character that I forgot, and I've got to say, Barry is probably the best rival in the series. The Pokemon designs are really well done, and to be perfectly honest, I feel like this was the last good batch of well designed Pokemon. I don't know, it kind of feels like Gen 5 and 6 for me were a bit trubbish. Whilst I love Kanto and Johto is my favourite, Sinnoh is the one that started it all, so that's why it takes the number 8 spot.
If a good chunk of your childhood was in the early mid-2000s, you played Simpsons Hit and Run at some point, whether it be at a friend's house or you even owning it. It's one of those games that's really hard to forget just because of how good it actually is, even if you watch your friend play it because it's their PlayStation so you don't get to play it. God damn it, Timmy! What is there not to love about this game? It's basically GTA but with The Simpsons instead of everything that GTA has. Like violence, so... yeah, it's basically GTA, but for kids. But it's fun. You also get to travel across multiple different areas from the Simpsons universe, Evergreen Terrace, downtown Springfield, and even the Squidport, with a wide variety of cars to choose from. Some that you'll unlock through missions, and the others that you'll have to spend some cold hard.
Wonga!
You also play as multiple different characters from the Simpsons universe, including the whole family and even Apu, and even their voice actors are present as well. It's a nice and fun game that's really fleshed out and polished. I can't think of anything wrong with the game or even anything negative to say. It's just that good. Rayman! Whilst I love the first game even though it's so bloody difficult, I much prefer the second one and it's like 50 ports of it. Rayman 2, unlike its predecessor, was in 3D and not 2D even though it was meant to be. You play as Rayman and you travel across multiple different worlds because a pirate has ruined the balance of the world. So you have to traverse different levels in this collectathon platformer and collect 1,000 llams that have been spread across... oh, bugger it, make it 999. This game does have a lot of good things about it. For example, I feel the story of this game is a million times better than the first game, and the music did only a slightly better job than the first one. I highly regard Rayman 1's soundtrack as one of the best on the PlayStation 1. I mean, heck, one of the songs is my bloody outro music, for Christ's sake. But Rayman 2 did a better job of making it more atmospheric and creepy in some cases. This game is not the happy and innocent game that the first one was. Oh no, not by a long shot. Rayman 2 is more dark and again, creepy. The story is much better and more fleshed out and I love it. That is all.
Oh bugger, I can't think of what to put on number 5. Oh, I know, Sonic Hero... for God's sake. Oh, bugger me. What?
I hear you're talking about Sonic Heroes.
How did you hear that?
Oh, never mind that. You know I love Sonic Heroes. It's such a classic game in the series, not to mention its first debut onto the PS2. I mean, it wasn't exactly the greatest port of the game. The GameCube version was admittedly better, but...
oh, shut up, for Christ's sake. Do you want to do this segment then?
Wait, really?
Yeah, go for it, whatever. I need to regather my will to live anyway after listening to you ramble on.
Oh. Very well then. I'm shocked I wasn't invited to this, frankly, but anyway, when it comes to my favourite games, there's only one I think of when it comes to cherished childhood memories. Sonic Heroes is just one of those games that has stuck with me since I was a child. I just keep going back to it, it's quite concerning honestly. Look at this, the graphics, the speed, the colour, Jesus, move aside Sonic Adventure 2, this is what real speed is. Sonic Heroes has 4 stories, and they're all exactly the same. Yeah, I can see this being a turn off for some, well most actually, but I like this story and I like this gameplay style, so playing it multiple times isn't so off-putting for me. The stories themselves could be stronger. Team Rose is looking for that damn frog again, really, and Team Dark is trying to unlock Shadow's past. Even though Rouge, you know, was there. Seriously Rouge, just tell him and put him out of his misery. But no, we need all this to set up... move on. Having said that, Sonic Heroes doesn't need a big ambitious story. The adventure games were big, explosive narrative experiences with many twists and turns within the overall plot. Heroes is just, oh, Eggman's invited us to kick his ass? Let's go. It's simple and fun, which is exactly what made the Genesis game so endearing. Also, shout out to Seaside Hill and its beautiful updated Genesis art style. This stage is just gorgeous. The gameplay is something I can enjoy through multiple playthroughs. I've never sighed at the thought of playing the game again like I did with Sonic 06, and it never felt daunting like Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. I'm mentioning that game because it can die. The controls, which many people consider to be overly slippery, are something I feel provide an ever-present sense of adrenaline. I know I'm going to make it, but I often feel like I won't, which I know puts many people off, but me... well, let me put it this way. My favourite thing to do in Rail Canyon is to fling myself off the side of the rails for absolutely no reason whatsoever, and see if I can land on the incredibly narrow rail below. I usually make it, but whenever I'm approaching that rail I get the feeling that I might miss and I get tensed up. Awesome. I could fly across the gap in Seaside Hill, or I could use the rocket SL to make a leap of faith. Why not? I could hang back and wait for these lasers in Final Fortress to pass, or I could race the lasers and risk being thrown off the rail. The excitement in these moments is amazing and something I've never got from any other game before. But I do understand the mixed reception of this game. What people didn't understand, and I think still don't, is that Sonic Heroes is not Adventure 2 or the Genesis games. You don't just jump in and play like a pro, It takes time, it takes repeated playthroughs, which this game conveniently provides. I've been playing this since I was a very small child, so I know this game inside and out. And the pain of watching new players experience this game for the first time is admittedly quite maddening. The game isn't perfect. Some of the levels are a pain in the rear, bingo highway, I'm looking right at you. And the voice acting is,
What are we gonna do, Sonic?
Not great. But I've never been more compelled to return to a game nearly 15 years after my first playthrough as I am with Sonic Heroes. Even now, the excitement of replaying this again and again was as fresh as it was when I was 8. Games like Crash to Insanity and Mega Man X5 gave me amazing memories as a kid, but Sonic Heroes is still giving me them today. Definitely Sonic's finest and last true gem.
Oh Christ, I can't think of a number 4 spot. James!
I walk a lonely road, the only road that I have ever known.
So this is how you're spending your gap year then?
Oh, bite me, Sam, I'm having fun.
Yeah, really looks like a lot of fun.
So, how's your video going, Sam?
Can't think of a number 4 spot. Can you fill in for me? Give me a hand.
I thought as much. Come on, let me grab my camera. Alright, a game from my childhood. What should I choose? Aha! Now, I didn't own a console when I was younger. My older brother did, he had a PS2. And while I wasn't allowed to play it most of the time, since he usually played single-player games, there was a lot of times when I was allowed to watch him play. And out of all the games that he owned and I was allowed to watch, one game really grabbed my attention and really got me hooked. And that game was Kingdom Hearts. I absolutely loved this game when I was younger. Watching Sora beat the shit out of all the Disney villains while standing alongside Donald Duck and Goofy just sounded awesome to me in my head. And when the chance was finally mine to get to play it, I was damn right. It was just as awesome as I had hoped. Even from the first notes of the remix opening, I had chills down my spine. And then I saw the first boss I would be fighting. As a kid, that scared the shit out of me, but I'll be damned, it was so satisfying to beat it up with your Keyblade. From then on, my younger self was in heaven going from Disney World to Disney World. But not only were you working with and fighting against Disney characters, you were also working with characters from the Final Fantasy series. From Cloud to Yuffie, to even attempting and failing to fight Sephiroth. Even to this day, this is f***ing impossible, goddammit! Now don't get me wrong, there are some parts of this game I didn't like. For example, the large bodies are such a pain in the arse early game since you can only attack them from behind, and in Hollow Bastion they're replaced with these. And of course, some parts of the story didn't make sense to me even as a kid. For example, Sora literally up and leaves his parents to get swallowed by the darkness, and it is never brought up again in the entirety of the game. Now I know a lot of people are confused about the story for all the games as a whole, but luckily there's plenty of videos that explain the whole timeline. I personally recommend this one by Frustrated Jacob. Go watch it if you are absolutely desperately wanting to get an explanation for how everything works. In terms of the better game, I'd probably say Kingdom Hearts 2 is better overall, but as one that introduced me to an incredible series, and the first game I ever completed fully on both normal and hard difficulty, which was quite a feat when I was 12, the original holds a very special place in my heart. And that's it from me. Back to you, Samantha.
Those who have met me online in the last few years would have seen this one coming, considering it's no secret that I love Toontown. Now sadly, Toontown Online is no longer available. Disney decided to shut it down on September 19th, 2013. However, there are many private and free servers for you to re-experience the game on. Toontown Rewritten being the most famous one, and I would highly recommend you check it out if you have played Toontown Online as a child or want to see what I'm about to fuss on about. Toontown Online was my first introduction to online gaming. When I was younger, the internet and online gaming was just becoming a big thing with children, especially from my generation. However, we had the constant presentation to school about online safety, so I tended to stay away from it. However, it was my dad who introduced me to this game. From the second I started playing, I fell in love with it, and I'm so glad that I got to experience it. Me and my awesome Doug Yippee Banana Squad kicked butt and has got as far as I could as a free account. I did get to experience life as a member for a month and I loved it. However, shortly after that I discovered Free Realms, the game that made me fall in love with the MMO genre. If it wasn't for Free Realms, I probably wouldn't like World of Warcraft as much as I do now. Seriously, I've played 22 days worth of World of Warcraft. That's insane. Free Realms is more like a childlike World of Warcraft with humans and Pixies. Now sadly I cannot comment on too much of the game due to the fact that this game has now shut down. We lost Free Realms in 2014 and I hadn't played it since 2011, but it was an integral part of my childhood that I can't fault in any way. Oh, and it was also on PS3.
Now, those of you that have known me for a while, or have watched my content since, well, forever, whenever really, will probably know what my #1 spot is, or at least what franchise it's from.
I love Spyro. It's my favourite game of all time, and it's no surprise considering how good it is. And no surprise, I really like all the games in the series.
Except this one!
However, out of all of them, my favourite one has to be Spyro 3: Year of the Dragon. Whilst most people herald Spyro 2 as the best in the series, and yes, to an extent I do agree with them, Spyro 3 was the first game that I ever finished 100%. But Spyro 3 was the first game that I 100%ed despite it being really bloody hard to do so. Technically the game works in the same way as Spyro 2, it using the same engine and all, but visually I think this game looks much better than the last two. It's more colourful and exciting, and the music in this game is much better than the previous ones, and I listen to this one much more than the others. I mean, just listen to it! This game does have its fair share of flaws, don't get me wrong. I mean, the sorceress wasn't the best villain in the world, we barely got to see her. I felt more threatened than by Bianca, and that's saying something considering she becomes good later on. But I do feel that her motive for what she did was the best one. Nasty Nork froze the dragons because of an insult, Ripto took over Avalar because bugger it, why not, but the sorceress did it because the magic from the Forgotten Worlds has been draining since the dragons left, and her power is fading. She also wants immortality which baby dragon wings can grant, hence why she stole the eggs. I just love this game way too much, and replaying it just for footage was such a blast. I love this game. Love it!
Well, there you go, my top 10 games from my childhood. If you played any of those games when you were a child, let me know down in the comments, or if you remember any games from your childhood, let me know down there as well. I'd love to see if we played any other games that weren't on this list. Well, that's all from me. Next time, I promise I will have a proper review for you.